They say in America you can reinvent yourself, but no one tells you that sometimes reinvention looks a lot like hiding. I wasn't trying to become someone new. I was just trying not to be seen. And then, of course, he showed up with a camera pointed at me like he could read every secret I'd buried. His name was Adrian Vega. He was my neighbor on the same dorm floor in a college that felt too big for me, too loud, too relentless. And from the moment we met, he acted like my silence was just another kind of invitation. I had moved into the University of New York dorms with the simple plan of blending into the background. Quiet classes, quick meals, library late nights. No drama, no attention, no chance of someone noticing me too much. I had learned long ago that attention, especially the wrong kind, was dangerous. But Adrian was attention. He was the kind of boy who carried sunlight around like it belonged to him. Hair that always looked artfully messy, camera dangling from his neck like a second heart, smile that could convince even the stern dorm manager to overlook noise violations. The first time he knocked on my door, I was half asleep on my desk, headphones in, music low. "Hey, new guy." His voice carried through the wood. "You alive in there? Or should I call campus security to break it down?" I opened the door with an annoyed sigh. "What do you want?" He grinned, eyes flicking instantly to my face like he'd been waiting. A smile. "But I'll settle for an introduction." It should have ended there. A laugh, a shake of the head, a polite retreat. But Adrian didn't retreat. He showed up again the next morning, leaning against the doorframe with a cup of coffee in one hand and his camera in the other. "You don't smile much, do you?" he asked, not unkindly, just curious. "I don't see why I should," I muttered. "That's exactly why," he said, raising the camera slightly but not snapping. "Because you don't. Makes it rare. Makes it worth chasing." I didn't know then that those words were the beginning of a storm I couldn't outrun. Days turned into weeks, and Adrian became impossible to avoid. He lingered in the hallways, accidentally ended up at the same campus coffee shop, sat across from me in the cafeteria, though I never invited him. First, I hated it, or maybe I told myself I did. But every time I caught him aiming that lens my way, I felt something warm and frightening curl inside my chest. "You're wasting film," I snapped one evening when he crouched in the common room. Camera trained on me as I flipped through a book. "It's digital," he replied smoothly. "And I'm not wasting anything. You're just puzzle. I want to know what's behind those walls." The truth was, I was terrified he might succeed. Because behind my walls was a boy who had grown up in a town where being different wasn't safe. A boy who had learned to laugh at the wrong jokes so no one would suspect the truth. A boy who had kissed someone once, just once, and had been betrayed for it. And now here was Adrian, with his open grin and relentless gaze, pulling me into the light whether I wanted it or not. One night, everything cracked. It was raining, the kind of rain New York seemed to specialize in: endless, cold, loud against the glass. Power flickered in the dorm, and half the floor gathered in the lounge with blankets and board games. I stayed in my room, pretending to study, when there was a knock again. "Don't tell me you're hiding," Adrian said when I opened the door. His hair was wet, droplets clinging to his lashes. He looked like he had stepped out of some movie scene designed to ruin my defenses. "I don't do parties," I muttered. "Good," he said, stepping past me before I could stop him. "Because I don't either. I came for something else." I blinked. "Which is?" He lifted his camera, but this time his voice softened. "I want the real you, just once. Not the guarded version. Not the walls. Just you." I froze. Every muscle in my body screamed to run, to shove him out, to end this before it began. But his eyes, dark, steady, impossibly patient, held me still. "I can't," I whispered. "You can," he said gently. "You just don't want to let yourself." And maybe it was the storm outside, or the loneliness I had carried like a second skin, or just the unbearable truth that I wanted to be seen by him, wanted it more than I wanted safety. I smiled, just barely, just enough to count. The click of his camera was immediate, sharp, final. But when I looked up, he wasn't even looking at the screen. He was looking at me. "Yeah," he breathed. "That's it. That's the one. My chest ached with something I didn't have a name for. That was the night everything began to unravel. Because once I'd given him one smile, he wanted more. And once he knew it was possible, he refused to stop. And I stopped wanting him to. Adrian became relentless after that storm. Not in a cruel way, not like he was trying to break me open by force, but relentless the way rain is relentless, steady, patient, falling until it seeps into every crack. Started small. Coffee mugs pushed into my hands before I could protest. Notes slipped under my door with sketches of smiley faces and terrible jokes. A playlist he swore would fix my tragic taste in music. It didn't, but I listened anyway. But most of all, it was the photos. They appeared on my desk sometimes, printed on glossy paper and left without a word. Me in the library, frowning at a textbook. Me in the cafeteria, looking like I wanted to disappear. Me in the lounge, sitting too close to the edge of the couch. And then, one day, me smiling. Not the smile I'd given him that stormy night, but another one. A real one. I hadn't even known he'd caught it. "You're stalking me?" I accused when I found him in the hallway. Camera slung casually around his neck. "I'm studying you," he corrected with maddening calm. "There's a difference. One is creepy, the other is art." "And which one is this?" I asked, holding up the print. "Both," he said with a grin. We started spending more time together, though I would have died before admitting I wanted it. He had a way of pulling me into his orbit, making everything feel less heavy. Late-night diner runs. Wandering Central Park with his camera clicking every 2 steps. Sitting on the dorm rooftop, watching the city breathe below us. And somewhere along the way, my chest stopped aching when he pointed the camera at me. Instead, it started aching when he didn't. But the closer we got, the more the past clawed at me. There were things Adrian didn't know, things I couldn't bear to tell him. The small town in Pennsylvania I came from, where boys like me were either invisible or punished. The kiss I'd stolen from my best friend in high school. The way he'd pulled back with horror. The way he'd told everyone until my name became a curse. I had survived by shutting down. By making myself unreadable, untouchable, unworthy of rumor. Smiling had been dangerous back then. Smiling meant someone might look closer. And now Adrian was demanding all of that back. My walls, my silence, my carefully constructed distancy wanted to tear it down with nothing but patience and light. It came to a head one Friday night in October. The dorm was buzzing with plans for a Halloween party. Adrian showed up at my door, grinning like a kid, holding out a ridiculous vampire cape. "Come on," he said. "It'll be fun." "No," I said immediately. "You didn't even think about it." "I don't have to. The answer's no." He tilted his head, studying me. "Why are you so scared of people seeing you?" I froze. "I'm not." "Yes, you are," he said softly. "You think if you let yourself be seen, the world will break you. But you're wrong." I snapped before I could stop myself. "What the hell do you know about it?" The silence that followed was sharp. Adrian's smile faltered, but his eyes didn't look away. "You're right," he said quietly. "I don't know what you've been through, but I know what I see now. And I see someone worth looking at, worth photographing, worth everything." The words struck something raw in me, and it terrified me more than anything. "Get out," I whispered. Adrian's jaw tightened. For the first time, he didn't argue. He just nodded, set the cape down gently on my desk, and walked out. The room felt colder after he left. I told myself it was for the best, that he deserved someone without all my baggage, that I was protecting myself, protecting him, protecting something. But the truth was simpler. I was scared, scared of wanting too much, scared of losing what little I'd found, scared that if I let him in, he'd see the broken parts of me and walk away. The days that followed were brutal. Adrian didn't knock anymore. He didn't slip photos under my door, didn't drag me out for midnight coffee. I saw him in the hallways sometimes, laughing with other people, camera still around his neck. But the smile he gave me was polite, distant. Shouldn't have hurt, but it did. God, it did. One night, unable to take the silence anymore, I wandered up to the rooftop. The city was spread out below, endless lights flickering like stars. And there he was, leaning against the railing, camera in hand. He looked up when he heard me, surprise flickering across his face. "I didn't think you'd come up here," he said. His voice wasn't cold, but it wasn't warm either. "I couldn't sleep," I admitted. Silence stretched between us. The kind of silence that says everything you're too afraid to. Finally, I blurted it out. "I'm not like you. I don't know how to be seen. I don't know how to be wanted." Adrian set his camera down, really looking at me. "Who told you that?" I swallowed hard. "Everyone. My whole life. Back home, people like me. We don't get to be happy. We get laughed at. Or worse." His face softened, pain flickering in his eyes. He stepped closer, slow like he was approaching a wounded animal. "You're not back home," he said gently. "You're here. With me. And I want you. I don't care if you smile or frown or hide or shout, I want you. Exactly as you are." Something inside me cracked. My throat burned, my eyes stung, and before I could stop myself, the truth spilled out. "I kissed someone once," I whispered, "and he hated me for it. He told everyone. I swore I'd never let it happen again." Adrian reached out, his hand hovering near mine but not quite touching. "I'm not him," he said simply, "and I never will be." I don't know what possessed me then. Maybe it was the weight of years lifting, maybe it was the city lights painting us in gold, maybe it was just him. But I closed the distance, just enough for my hand to brush his. And for once, I didn't pull away. Adrian didn't kiss me that night. He didn't push, didn't demand. He just held my hand, steady and warm, as if to say, "I'm here. I'll wait." And for the first time in years, I believed him. But the story didn't end there. Couldn't. Because letting him in meant opening myself up not just to him, but to the world I'd been hiding from. And the world has a way of testing you the moment you think you're safe. They say the city tests you when you start to feel too comfortable, like it senses your guard lowering and decides to remind you who's really in charge. I should have known the peace with Adrian wouldn't last. It started with a photo. Not one Adrian gave me, but one someone else took. A group picture from the Halloween party, the one I hadn't gone to, but Adrian had. He stood in the back, cape draped over his shoulders, smiling at someone out of frame. When the photo made its way around the dorm group chat, people noticed something else. Me, sitting in the corner, blurry, half turned away. I hadn't even realized he'd snapped that shot. I hadn't realized how obvious it looked, either the way his lens was tilted toward me, like I was the only thing he cared about in a room full of noise. The whispers started almost immediately. "Why's Vega always taking pics of him? You think they're? No way. He's too quiet. Too weird." It spread like wildfire. And with every comment, every sideways glance, I felt myself shrinking. By the next week, it wasn't whispers anymore. It was jokes in the cafeteria, crude questions in the lounge. People nudging Adrian with smirks, asking if I was his muse. I wanted to disappear. Adrian tried to brush it off, laughing, telling people they were idiots. But the damage was done. My chest burned every time I walked into a room. Every time someone looked at me too long. Every time laughter broke out behind my back. I was back in high school 16, humiliated, betrayed. One night I snapped. We were in his room, music low, camera on the desk. He was showing me some of his work, his fingers brushing mine whenever he turned a page. For a second, it felt easy again. And then my phone buzzed with another message, a screenshot of a comment from some guy on our floor. No wonder Vega's obsessed. He finally found someone pathetic enough to pose for him. I slammed the phone down. Adrian blinked. "Hey, what's wrong? What's wrong?" My voice shook with anger I hadn't planned. "You. This. All of it. Everyone's talking, Adrian. Do you get that? They're laughing at me." His brows furrowed. "Who cares what they think?" "I do," I shouted. The words tore out of me, raw and sharp. "Because I've lived this before and it ruined me. You don't understand what it's like being the joke, the freak, the one everyone points at." Adrian flinched like I'd struck him. "I thought you wanted to be seen," he said quietly. I never asked for this. The silence after was suffocating. Adrian's jaw tightened, and for the first time since I'd met him, he looked away. Maybe, he said softly, you don't want to be seen by me either. He grabbed his camera and left the room before I could stop him. The days after were worse than before. Adrian didn't avoid me, not exactly, but he pulled back. No knocks on my door, no coffee runs, no photos slipped under the frame. When we passed in the hall, his smile was faint, polite, like we were strangers again. And it hurt more than the whispers ever did. I tried to convince myself it was better this way, that I had been right. Distance meant safety, invisibility meant survival. But every time I walked past his closed door, every time I saw him laughing with someone else, every time I caught the empty weight of my own silence, I realized safety felt a lot like loneliness. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. I found Adrian on the rooftop again, camera in his hands, the city lights painting his face in gold and shadow. He didn't look up when I approached, didn't say my name. He just kept adjusting the lens, snapping photos of a skyline that suddenly seemed a lot colder without him in it. I'm sorry, I blurted, the words spilling out before I could choke them back. He froze, lowering the camera. I was scared, I admitted, voice shaking. All those people, all those whispers, felt like I was back there again. Back where being myself meant losing everything. Adrian's eyes softened, but there was hurt lingering in them too. And you thought pushing me away would protect you? Yes, I whispered. And it was wrong. Because the truth is, Adrian, the truth is I don't care about them. Care about you. And that scares the hell out of me. The silence that followed stretched, heavy and fragile. I thought he might turn away, tell me it was too late. Instead, he set the camera down carefully on the ledge and stepped closer. You don't have to smile for anyone else, he said gently. But let me have yours. Just me. That's all I'll ever ask. My throat tightened. And if they laugh again? He reached up, brushing his thumb against my cheek, tilting my face toward his. Then let them, he whispered, because they'll never understand what it feels like to be here, right now, with you. And then, finally, after weeks of walls and silence and fear, kissed me. It wasn't dramatic, not at first. Just a brush of lips, tentative, careful, asking instead of taking. But the moment I leaned in, the moment I let myself feel it, everything inside me cracked wide open. The city roared beneath us, car horns and sirens and distant laughter. But up there, in that small patch of sky, it was just us. Just his hand steady against my jaw, his mouth warm and certain against mine, and the dizzying realization that I wasn't broken for wanting this. When we finally pulled back, both breathless, Adrian grinned. There it is, he murmured, eyes shining. The smile worth chasing. And for once, I didn't hide it. But the story wasn't over yet. Because happiness doesn't erase fear in an instant. Love doesn't rewrite the past overnight. There were still people who whispered, still jokes that stung, still moments where my instinct was to retreat. But now, every time the fear rose, Adrian was there, steady, patient, reminding me with every glance, every touch, every stolen photo that I wasn't alone. And maybe that was the point all along. The first time he introduced me as someone important at a gathering, my chest went tight. I waited for the laughter, the mockery, the cruel words, but they didn't come. A few raised brows, sure, but mostly just nods, smiles, a chorus of cool, man. It was anticlimactic, and it was everything I needed. Months later, when I found myself standing in a gallery downtown, staring at a wall filled with Adrian's photos, I felt something shift deep inside me, because there I was, over and over again. Not the blurred, half-hidden boy I tried to be, but laughing, frowning, thoughtful, alive. I turned to Adrian, heart in my throat. You showed them, I said softly. He slipped his hand into mine. No, he corrected. You showed them. I just took the picture. And for the first time, I believed him. Healing wasn't a straight line. After that night on the rooftop, after the kiss that felt like it rewrote the very laws of who I thought I could be, I wanted to believe everything would be easy, that the whispers wouldn't matter anymore, that my past couldn't claw its way back, that Adrian's presence would be enough to erase all of it. But life didn't work that way. Some mornings, I still woke up with the weight of silence pressing down on me. Some afternoons, a passing joke in the cafeteria still made my stomach twist. Some nights, when Adrian reached for me, a part of me flinched not because I didn't want him, but because I still couldn't believe I deserved him. The difference now was this: I didn't have to face it alone. Adrian was patient in ways I didn't know patience existed. He never pushed, never demanded. When I needed space, he gave it. When I needed grounding, he held me until the world stopped spinning. And when I needed laughter, when the dark felt too heavy, delivered it in the form of terrible puns and absurdly timed Polaroids that caught me mid-yawn, mid-sneeze, mid-anything that reminded me I was human. "You're not broken," he told me once, sliding a photo across the table of me, mouth open in an unflattering laugh. "You're alive, and that's more beautiful than perfect could ever be." I didn't believe him right away, but little by little I wanted to. We fell into a rhythm that winter. Classes, meals, long walks through the city bundled in scarves and too many layers. Evenings spent sprawled across his dorm floor, him editing photos while I pretended to study. Nights when he dragged me outside just to take pictures of the snow reflecting under streetlights, insisting the world looked different at 2 a.m. And slowly, the world did look different. There was one night I'll never forget. We were lying on the dorm rooftop again, breath fogging in the freezing air, wrapped in a blanket that wasn't nearly thick enough for two. Adrian had his camera resting on his chest, and used for once. "Do you ever think about the future?" he asked suddenly. I turned my head, studying him in the dim glow of the city. "Like, careers? Jobs?" "No," he said, smiling faintly. "Like us. Where we'll be. Who we'll be." My chest tightened. The future had always been a terrifying thing for mesomething I avoided thinking about because it meant imagining myself alone, drifting, unseen. But when I looked at him, I realized I didn't have to imagine it that way anymore. "I don't know," I admitted honestly. "But I think I want you there." Adrian's grin was slow, warm, dangerous in the way it made my whole body ache. "Good," he murmured, "because I'm not planning on going anywhere." Spring came, and with it, sunlight and possibility. Adrian's photography professor nominated his portfolio for a city showcase. When he told me, he was grinning so hard I thought his face might split. "They want us," he blurted, and my stomach dropped. "Us." He pulled me into his room and spread prints across the bed, photo after photo of me. Not posed, not forced. Just me, reading, smiling faintly, laughing too hard, staring out windows like I was trying to see something beyond the horizon. "They want authenticity," he said, his eyes shining. "And you're the most authentic thing I've ever captured." Panic rose in my throat. "Adrian, I can't." "What if people—" He reached for my hands, grounding me instantly. "Then let them," he said softly. "This isn't about them. It's about us. About me showing the world the thing that makes me believe in art again." My chest ached with fear, but underneath it something else stirred, something that sounded a lot like pride. The night of the showcase, I stood in that crowded gallery, surrounded by strangers, staring at myself on whitewashed walls. It should have been unbearable, but Adrian's hand was steady in mine, and for once, instead of shrinking, I stood taller. People didn't laugh. They didn't whisper. They studied. They smiled. They saw what Adrian had always seen. And in that moment, for the first time in my life, I felt seen too. The summer after freshman year, we moved off campus together. A tiny apartment with leaky pipes, crooked blinds, and a view of a brick wall. It was perfect. We built a life in the small things. Shared morning coffee, messy piles of laundry, arguments over which brand of cereal was superior. Adrian covered the walls with photographs. I filled the shelves with books. Slowly, the space became ours. One night, as we lay tangled on the couch, the hum of the city drifting through the cracked window, Adrian whispered, "You know, you never have to smile for me again if you don't want to." I looked at him, confused. He brushed his fingers along my jaw, gentle as ever. Because now I know you're not hiding. And that's all I ever wanted to know you, not just the smile. Something warm bloomed in my chest, so full I thought it might spill over. I want to, though, I admitted, voice low. For you. I want to. And I did. Years later, when people asked Adrian what inspired his most famous series, the one that would end up in magazines, galleries, textbooks, she always gave the same answer with a mischievous smile. A boy who didn't know how to smile, and then taught me what it meant when he finally did. But for us, it wasn't about the fame, the photos, or the recognition. It was about the mornings we woke up pressed together in two small beds. The nights we fell asleep with the city buzzing outside. The laughter, the arguments, the endless rhythm of two lives intertwining. It was about love. Quiet, stubborn, enduring love. And in the end, that was enough. More than enough. Because once upon a time, I had been a boy hiding from the world. And then a photographer knocked on my door with a camera and a grin and refused to let me stay unseen. And now I was his. Seen, known, loved. And smiling, always smiling. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.